Good morning around the world, and welcome to Thursday's edition of premarketinfo.com, where we prepare you for the most important hour of the day, the first hour. Well, Dennis, looks like the S&Ps had a halfway decent sell-off here in the morning and seem to be rallying back on some good numbers.
Yeah, Joel, definitely market up here 4.5. We've had a couple good reports. Caterpillar reported, 3M reported. Those were both good. AT&T disappointed a little bit, but overall European banks are stronger too. So I think that's what's giving us a little bit of a lift.
Yep, the earnings lift. Okay, recapping that S&Ps, that 1315.75 low would give us a 1331 and a quarter. The 2575 high, which is unlikely to hold. If it does, we got a downside target of 1310 and a quarter. As long as we stay above the close here, we're still heading north. Moving on to the Big Ten, ExxonMobil kind of sold off early in the day, but came roaring back to settle at 87.22. Have a couple tops up there. Tuesday's high, also Wednesday's high at 87.38. Trading up into pre-market, Dennis, so you'd have to use that close as support. Looking on the upside, can we get to that 52-week high at 88.23?
$88 going to be the first stopping point, though, Joel, because I definitely see some size there in the book. So I'd expect high frequency resistance at the 87.90s. We topped out, in that 87. I think it was 87.96 there a few sessions ago. So 87.90 is going to give you that initial resistance. We take that 88 out, then I'll talk about your 52-week high, 88.23.
Okay, Apple Computer blew the doors off the streets. We are a good 75 points above the Steve Jobs passing away level, folks. So far it has not been a factor. After hours high of 468.95 doesn't look like that's going to come into play. 454.55 Wednesday's high is your first stopping point on the upside. I'm giving this 448.28 a pretty high rating here, even though you don't have a stopping point there. But I can't give away my secret formula. But I use this 448.28 as a swing number. Mild support at the close and good support at yesterday's low at 443.73. And then underneath that, you have the gap. Well, that gap is even lower than 431.47, but that's all I could fit on the sheet.
Yeah, definitely take out that 443.73, and we've got that gap. So you want to see that 443.73 hold. Gets above 454.45, you get interested, possibly the long side. But until that, I'd use yesterday's range. I'd try to use that, as your support and resistance as well.
Okay, IBM, the world's strongest stock here, as we've recommended on this show several times, marching up towards that 52-week high, all-time high as well. We got a good number, though, coming into play, folks. You have two highs here, Tuesdays and Wednesdays high, 192.24 to 192.30. After that, it really opens up until that 194 area. Coming back on the downside, you got to use that close. Actually, Monday and Tuesday's close were very similar here, 91.73 and 191.93. Below that, you got a sharp drop to Wednesday's low at 189.51.
Yeah, Joel, good numbers there too. I was looking at those two tops as well. I think though eventually we might take out that 192.23, and then it does open up into that 94. 95 is really the major resistance up there. The 195 that is, and I think you see lots of high frequency traders at that 52-week high at 194.90.
HFT guys mess with that IBM too.
They mess with everything, Joel. They mess with everything. They got something to lean on, they'll mess with it.
And in IBM, it's probably 5,000 shares. Okay, moving on to Chevron Corporation. Finally broke out of that consolidation area. We've been talking about that 106.70 to 107 area forever and a brother. Broke down yesterday, got to 105.09. It's probably had quite a few people faked out and then just couldn't ignore that vicious SPU rally. Closed at 107.73 with a 108 high. Don't get too carried away over that 108, folks. You got the 10-day high at 108.66, 108.68. Then it opens up another $2 to 110.66, and I believe the whole time all-time high is at 110.99.
It's at 110.99 with the high frequency resistance all in front of that high, probably in the high 110s. I'd use the 110 though as a psychological resistance level as well. I think you see some sellers coming in and selling in that 110 area. So resistance starting from 110 all the way up to the old 52-week high of 110.99.
Okay, Microsoft never look back, making a high at 29.65 with the close at 56. We are currently trading in that area, folks. So let's use that close all the way down to the close as support, initiating some long at 29.56. There's not a whole heck of a lot. Coming on the upside, so far the high in the move has been 29.95. Trying to get through that $30 level, Dennis. Is today the day that Microsoft finds a new handle?
All I know is, Joe, that $30 level is huge. So I'd expect those high frequency guys to be in the 29.90s all over the place. Until 30 can get taken out, I'd play from the short side. If that $30 gets taken out, all bets are off. But I think eventually it might take it out. But, initially here we just popped from 29.07. People, that bought, in the 29.80s, 29.90s, maybe banking was going to take us to 30. They're going to get a chance to maybe get their money back today. So I think you're going to find resistance starting probably around 29.85 all the way up to $30.
Okay, GE is starting to look interesting here. 1875, 1879, double bottom there. So the major support moving up from that 1856 level. Monday's hot.
1856, Joel. Oh no, 1850. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm talking about the lows.
Yeah.
About the lows, Dennis.
I'm sleeping again here this morning, Joel.
It's not option expiration. And then, but you're looking at really interesting formation here. You have Wednesday's high, 1916, and then you have Monday's high in 1924. I mean, this thing's trying to bust out, Dennis, and try and get up to that 1953 level, which was our high back on July 22nd. Does GE have the mo today to get back to get through that 1924 level?
That's the number, 1924. So call 1925 is where that major size was. And I think all those high frequency guys sitting 1920 to 1924, kind of selling in front of them like those tractor beam plays we talk about. If it pulls and takes out that 19 and a quarter, then I think we talk about your 1953 number. So until it takes out 19 and a quarter, I remain bearish. Takes out 1925, I may get a little bit bullish.
Okay, Procter & Gamble's change to Tuesday's low at 64.04, got to 64.18 before recovering with the rest of the market. Trading above Wednesday's high, so let's use 65.15 down to the close, 64.98 as support. Going on the upside, Dennis, above the 65.15, just like this thing came down pretty hard, I don't see much up until the higher, 65.94, which was Monday's high, and then you'll probably say 66 is a psychological resistance.
Yeah, 66 I will say is psychological resistance. All in the 65.90s. I think that is where your major resistance is. I don't see much, like we filled this hole and took this hole out on Monday there. So I think, we start to rally back. It could rally back quite quickly, but that's where the stopping point I think is will be in the 65.90s if it starts to go into rally mode. Keep an eye on Johnson & Johnson too. We'll talk about that in a second, but those two often do trade together. So whenever I'm trading Procter & Gamble, I'm always kind of watching J&J too.
Okay, AT&T, the biggest mover of the Big Ten, disappointing the street a little bit, Dennis. Had been knocking on the door that 30.50 level for the last couple days, 30 and 30.50. The earnings came out disappointed. Interestingly, they've whacked it down to a really good number, our January 9th low of 29.56. And now we're just hovering here. Below that, I had the December 22nd low of 29.30, and then of course the $29 level.
Yeah, this 29.5 area seems to be a magnet right now, though. It's trading 29.51, 29.50 now exactly in the pre-market. So this is a stock. It missed by a penny on the bottom line. Revenues kind of came in line, but initially it popped a little bit on the report, trade up to 30.40, and then hung around 30.10 for a while as it was coming down, and then took out the $30, went straight down to 29.5. Bounced off that 29.5. This all happened in the pre-market. Got up to like 29.75, and now it's pulled back into that 29.5 area again, Joel. So this 29.5 area seems to be acting like a magnet. I'd use that, as initial support. It takes that out. Then I would use that number as resistance.
Okay, J&J getting a nice little pop here in the pre-market, trading up 37 cents. The stock, which had been very range bound for the last 10, 12 days. I had mentioned 11 closes between 65 and 65.29. You option premium sellers must have loved that. Now we're popping up above it, Dennis, and I really don't see much up until the 15-day high at 65.88. Coming back on the downside, since we are up in the pre-market, you'll have to use that major close area, 65.22 down to 65, as good support.
Kramer featured the stock last night. That's why it's
Ah.
getting a lift here this morning. Got a little lift last night, getting more of a lift this morning as Kramer liked the stock. I do have a trading position on there, so I will limit my comments, but I just say that 66 number is still huge for this.
Okay, and moving on to the smallest of the Big Ten, Pfizer Corporation yesterday, a little bit weak in the morning, but survived, rallied up to close near the high of the day, 21.72 high with a or 21.72 close with a 21.75 high. Currently trading smartly above that level, 13 cents. So we will use that as support, and perhaps we'll drift back up into that 22. Is there any size associated with that?
All over the place, Joel. 21.95. I see the size starting at going all the way to $22. So I'd expect good high frequency resistance starting around 21.88 to 21.94, and all the way up to $22. Really, for that matter, gets above 22, then maybe you can start getting interested in the long side. But until it can get above that 22 for a couple days, I think you got to play it from the short side.
Okay, SPU's just hanging on. 13.25 and a quarter. We have jobless claims coming out in a little bit, so that may change the complexion of the market. We're going to take a quick break and get many of our market movers together, and we'll be right back.